The MCU, a universe of characters spanning the last 14 years from Iron Man to the Avengers to Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And while it just gets a lot of praise and it's gotten a lot of hate recently towards its Phase 4, and yeah, although I liked Phase 4, I agree that Phase 3 was overall better. And now with the news of Kevin Feige taking a step back and really getting that he needs to do quality over quantity, that gives me hope for Phase 5 and Phase 6. But the part that really gets me ticked off is that people say that Phase 1 and 2 were better than Phase 4. And I will admit, it's just an opinion, but those opinions are just dead wrong. Out of the original Phase 1 and 2 movies, Phase 3 is great, Phase 2 is terrible, and Phase 1 is actually pretty good. And yeah, 2 out of 3 movies out of Phase 1 are it's about a 50-50 split. 3 are good, 2 are bad. And since you read the title of this video, you know that The Avengers is one of the bad movies. I don't know why people love this movie. I don't know why it's praised. So, people often say that Joss Whedon was a great director for this project, but I have to disagree. People also say that the characters were great, and while they did evolve into something great later in the future of the MCU, a few of the characters in here were not perfect. They were trash, and they're not developed enough at the time for a team-up. So today, let's dive into this movie and the good and the bad of the Avengers. So with nothing more to say, let's get into why I'm not in love with Marvel's Avengers. The Avengers would be released on July 2011 as they revealed, and would bring together Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., Steve Rogers, played by Steve Evans, Bruce Banner, played by Mark Ruffalo, and Thor, played by Chris Hemsworth. From previous Marvel films, they had their own entries. With the signing of Natasha Romanoff, Scarlett Johansson, in March 2009, and Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton in June 2010, the film was pushed back to a 2012 release. Whedon was brought on board in April 2010. Remember, at this point, his career was on the top of the world, and he was loved by near everyone. And he rewrote the original screenplay by Zach Penn. Production began in April 2011, and I'm not even going to try to say that, Albuquerque, New Mexico, before moving to Cleveland and Ohio in August. They moved to New York City in September, and the film had more than 2,200 visual effects shots. The Avengers premiered in Los Angeles on April 11th, 2012, and was released in the United States on May 4th, 2012, and it was the last film of Phase 1 in the MCU. The film has received praise for Whedon's direction and screenplay, visual effects, action sequences, acting, and musical score. The film grossed over $1.5 billion nationwide, setting numerous box office records and becoming the third highest grossing film of all time at the time of its release, and the highest grossing film of 2012, as well as Marvel's first production to reach $1 billion in ticket sales. In 2017, The Avengers was featured in one of the top 100 greatest films of all time in Empire magazine poll. It received a nomination for Best Visual Effects in 85 Academy Awards, among numerous other accolades. Now, the MCU has many characters, especially once you watch Avengers Infinity War and eventually watch Avengers Endgame. You truly see how many characters are in this franchise, but bringing back to 2012, there weren't many characters. There was Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Hawkeye, Thor, and Black Widow. Many people love these characters and what they evolved into. But me personally, I never liked them. But what many fail to realize is that they were extremely basic except for a few exceptions. These characters weren't evolved. Thor didn't lose Asgard. Hulk didn't lose Natasha. Iron Man didn't lose Rhodey. Captain America didn't find out that Bucky was alive. They all haven't gone through the journeys that they were supposed to go through at that time, and they really didn't evolve into amazing characters, which is why I simply didn't love the characters. I mean, they were all good, with a few exceptions, but this movie really has a 50-50 for me in terms of characters. The first character it's the first entry in the superhero franchise, the Avengers. But yeah, let's start off with Iron Man. Iron Man is the best character in the MCU. He's the best character in cinema, and he's the best character in this movie. There really is nothing more to say. Up until this point in the MCU, he's still arrogant and he thinks better than everyone else. He's also still a loner and really hasn't gone through the development of things like breaking up with Captain America and taking Spider-Man under his wing. Then there's Captain America. Captain America, I never really liked him up until his character arc in Civil War. And I actually haven't rewatched Civil War since I initially watched it. It's one of the few MCU movies, along with Ant-Man and Captain America and the Winter Soldier, that I haven't seen since I initially watched it. And I just don't remember liking that movie. Maybe I'll give it a retry sometime next year, but yeah, but that, at least in that movie, I felt like his journey was great. And Endgame really took this character and moved it into one of my favorites. But outside of his movies, I really don't like him very much, especially in the original Avengers. He was extremely one dimensional and seems like a normal soldier who just is better than everyone else. The only scene that I really loved him in is where he's interacting with Nick Fury about the Tesseract. Also, when he's arguing with Nick Fury, these two scenes are perfect and really demonstrated his fear and overall sadness about seeing the cube for the first time since he went under the ice. Then there's Thor. And this is where the video gets interesting, because I'm about to make an extremely unpopular opinion right now. Chris Hemsworth did not fit the role of Thor until Thor the Dark World. In the original Thor, he suited that movie very well, right? I didn't have any issues with him, but in this movie, he seems just extremely awkward, although he does have his moments with Loki, especially in the cage scene, that seems great. But at the end of the day, he just feels like he's a plot device to get Loki into New York and really give the Avengers the lowdown. And that's where the underlying problem about this movie lasts. Like I said in my Zack Snyder Justice League video, everyone feels like a plot device in this movie. With the exception of Iron Man and Captain America, even Hulk, who I like, is developed movie. They just could have been better, right? He's just there to destroy the holocarrier and help the Avengers in the end. And then there's Joss Whedon's love for Hawkeye. I always loved the character of Hawkeye, and I think he was executed perfectly in the recent series on Disney+. But I feel like they didn't need to throw him in the plot. He just feels like a plot device to be controlled and be Loki's stooge for 3 of the movie. It just feels like Joss Whedon couldn't do anything with him and just threw him in there for no reason. Even in Age of Ultron, the family plot was kind of forced, and although I think that the movie was vastly superior to this one, it does have its issues. Yeah, Age of Ultron is better than this movie in every way. Except character design, I think it's even worse. But, like, beside that, it's a better movie. Black Widow, who I think is extremely overrated. Oh my god, I hate her. I don't get why anyone loves this Black Widow. She is awful in this movie. She's just there to calm down Hulk and bring the Avengers together. She is the worst example of a plot device in any movie, in my opinion. But with the exception of the Hulk, she gets absolutely no development. Is just there as a plot device. Even if the other characters are plot devices, at least Joss attempts to make them like their own character. Black Widow, who is extremely generic, even in Iron Man 2, is just terrible. Even in the Black Widow movie, she sucked, although it did kind of remedy that. But she wasn't a good character to begin with, and that movie was also one of the worst in the MCU. So it really doesn't fix the problem. I'm just struggling to realize why people love the original version of these characters. That's not to say I hate these characters. I grew up with the MCU. I adore Captain America. I adore Hulk. I adore Chris Hemsworth. And I can say that Hulk was portrayed perfectly by Mike Ruffalo. He's one of the best actors in this entire movie. You can really feel that he's built for the role. And he can definitely take the cake as the best Hulk actor out of the 3. But like, he's also the one character I feel like really needs a movie still. But yeah, there's Loki, the generic villain who's bad. He wants to rule the world and still gets short in Thor. And we still don't have an explanation on how he got back to Earth. There are theories on that he got mind controlled during the attack of New York. But, like, I still think it's extremely stupid, and I think he got some well-deserved development in Thor the Dark World and Loki. I loved him a lot in Loki, and he's one of my favorite characters in the MCU. Definitely top 5 right now. And yeah, I'll probably be doing a Loki video essay really soon because I love the character so much, and because of the release of Quantumania in the next month and a half. But yeah, I don't really love the characters in this movie. I feel like it's a mixed bag. Although this movie isn't absolutely terrible. I think most of the blame falls on top of Joss Whedon. Everyone praises him for what he did, except for Justice League. But I really feel like he did suck with the exception of Age of Ultron. In every movie he's done so far. It's pretty funny. I covered him last video too with my Justice League video, and I trashed his version of Justice League, and now it's time for me to talk about his Avengers. His golden egg, if you will. So let's start talking about Joss Whedon's directing style, With most movies, I can really pinpoint a shot that I loved. In Love and Thunder, I love the spot where he's on the tree, really recollecting his life. In the original Iron Man, I love the shot with him walking out of the cave. Heck, even in his version of Justice League, there were a few shots that I really liked. Although they can give that more to Zack Snyder because he did film them. But in this movie, the cinematography just feels soulless. You really don't feel the soul of the director or the cinematographer in this movie, and it really just feels like they wanted to pump out and get it over with. In most movies, you feel a shot or two that I love. Even in like let's say a Captain America, I love the shot with him kind of busting through the grate. In what's another Ant-Man, I love the tiny size. It really shows how small he is. In Captain Marvel, I love the shot with the ship flying up, the colors. But in this movie, I feel like there's no soul to it. I feel like it's just there mainly to fulfill a purpose. Thomas McGravy, who directed the cinematography of this movie along with Joss Whedon, makes me vomit at most of this movie, if not all of it. There are no memorable shots. And I think that there's not one shot that I can go, oh my god, that's awesome. Give me another. This movie feels like it was made in a factory, with the exception of Nick Coulson dying. But that's not even a shot, that's just a scene that they did. And I did make a video on that a while back. Check that out if you want to see my opinion on that scene. But getting back to the directing style of this movie, most of the movie, including the fight scenes, have nothing interesting. There's no emotion, no heart, no style bleeding through the kind of movie this wants to be, like other MCU movies. This really comes down to the time, I think. This is before Guardians of the Galaxy came out and James Gunn didn't revolutionize the MCU stylistically. The style of the MCU was a big problem up until Guardians of the Galaxy, and I can't blame that on the director. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy was the first stylistically good movie in the MCU, I think. There were a few exceptions before that. I think Thor was kind of stylistic, so was Iron Man, but the rest kind of like just fall apart in terms stylistically. And nowadays we have beautiful movies like Spider-Man No Way Home, The Eternals, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, if you have seen it. They're just so beautiful nowadays, and it kind of goes crazy just to go back to Phase 1 of the MCU. Phase 2 is way better stylistically, although it's just kind of average. And then Phase 3 is beautiful stylistically. I think Doctor Strange, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, even Spider-Man Far From Home. They all are beautiful stylistically, and it kind of feels like they really put effort into that part of the MCU. And just like, I would recommend watching the Avengers and then watching Avengers Infinity War and really comparing the quality, because now everyone does say that Avengers Infinity War is better than this movie, and I have to agree. That is my favorite, and I think it's the critically best movie in the MCU. It is one, if not the best critically movie solid. It's just so solid, and you have to watch it to kind of understand why it's so good. But yeah, like, and honestly, but since all of his Joss Whedon's other movies really also feel soulless, I can kind of well blame on the director in this one instance. Even Thor had better shots than this, and I didn't love the original Thor. I thought it was a very boring movie. But the shots aren't the only problem with this movie. The music also sucks, with the exception of the original Avengers theme, which doesn't stick out because of its quality. It sticks out because of the significance of its impact in the drama, in the genre. No other track in this movie is memorable or even profound. And this is like the one criticism I didn't really talk about in my Zack Snyder Justice League video as well. But there was no music in that movie that really stuck out to me except the Flash scene. And I've been starting to notice that the music has been sticking out to me more since No Way Home. No Way Home is a good example of that. From the music with MJ to the final swinging scene, all the music in that movie was beautiful and really had me sobbing. Not the moment, but the music. No Way Home, along with the Batman, really made me feel like I realized how important music can be for the mood and for the atmosphere. So I've started to criticize music more, and the fact that I'm starting to evolve my taste in movies really isn't amazing to me anymore. Like, this movie really isn't amazing in my directing style anymore. It just seems boring, and although I can agree that the CGI is actually very good for this movie, it just seems, again, soulless. And there is no passion bleeding through this movie. It just feels like it's there to make money. Clearly, the MCU would fix this in the next 2 years, and now we have a beautiful MCU with amazing shots and great music. And while we're on the style of the MCU, the costumes also really suck in this movie. Captain America looks way too cartoonish. She just looks super, super goofy. If that kind of makes sense, goofy. He looks like Goofy. Iron Man is great, although a little over detailed. Thor is just extremely boring. And I actually kind of like Hawkeye's suit in this movie, but that's something else. But yeah, But let's getting off point. Like, let's go back to Joss Whedon. Voice kind of felt like the style of this movie was just kind of boring and trash. Suddenly, I stopped watching movies kind of like a general audience. I love the music and I love the shots, but don't get me wrong, you don't need it, but it kind of immerses me. And again, don't get me wrong, but I don't really watch movies to criticize them. I watch them to enjoy them and then I criticize them later. A good example of this is Black Adam, which I will probably be doing in the next 7 days because I really want to talk about that movie. I've been kind of bleeding over it since October. I had so much fun with that movie, and there are so many profound parts that I think it's how you improve a movie and take the trash out of the core. Except for that final act, that movie is near perfect, personally, and I think critically it's a solid 7. It's a 6 critically and maybe a 9 personally. Without that, but like let's get into the critically acclaimed part of this movie. And although I don't have much to say, I think it's important. So let's start talk about how the Avengers assemble. When you think of the Avengers, what do you think of? You probably think of the shot with them all teaming up together. But honestly, what else do you think of? I could think of the final fight. I think the final fight is decent, but I don't know why it gets all the praise it does. It's boring and kind of rubbish, so let's start talking about it. First of all, why would the government nuke New York City? It would kill billions of people, not just the aliens. And I get it, it's to protect the world, but at the end of the day, the government would never do that. They'd most likely send the government forces in like SHIELD to control and quarantine the center. Not nuke the entire thing, maybe a light bomb or two, but nothing much. It's not like it's not. I get it, it's a secret government area, but it feels like NATO would know or something. And I get it's a superhero movie, so realism doesn't matter. The thugs are also so generic in this movie. It's just Tari designs are just dirty blonde armor. They pose no real threat, and to even think that people are saving here have no character. It just kind of feels like this movie it's one giant set piece for the end of the movie. And at the end of the day, that's what the general audiences want. They want a giant fight at the end of the movie that destroys everything. Ant-Man movies, a lot of movies make this mistake, including Wonder Woman. I can say I hate this every time it happens. I love Black Adam, but even in Black Adam made this mistake. That's like the one criticism I have for every movie that is near perfect. And I hope that they can better this and give you a more unique fight. The only movie I think that really didn't fall for this giant trap of a unique fight at the end is probably going to be, I would say it's the Batman. Batman had a big fight, but it also was grounded in realism. Also, I kind of feel like, what was the movie? Wakanda Forever did kind of fall for this trap, but it also kind of worked in it organically. So that movie really doesn't get criticism from me. But like, I think that it couldn't be extremely small scale. But honestly, this is an Avengers movie. Keeping it in New York City was kind of stupid. It's like they wanted to keep some of their eggs, but also spread all their eggs out. So instead of having a giant fight, it's only in New York City. The entire movie takes place in like the U.S., so it's kind of crazy how they didn't spread it up to different places. Eventually, Infinity War figured out how to do this. They took the battle all over the galaxy, not just to Earth, and they had ramifications for all those around it. Of course, this movie doesn't do anything wrong by taking place in the U.S. It just did more scale, and they couldn't do what Avengers: Infinity War did because they hadn't introduced any cosmic heroes yet. But why didn't they bring this fight to a different area? Why didn't they bring it to Chicago? I don't know. Why didn't they bring it to? They could. Like I'm saying this right now. Loki's a god of mischief. Why didn't he? Why couldn't he have done it? Oh, there's a spot in the Earth. It's like the hole between space and time. So now you can put kind of like what they did in the Dark World. Of course, you would still have the beam in there, but like at least it could have been more simple. I also think that the beam is a massive problem. Giant blue beam in the fight. Every movie did this up until Civil War, with the exception of like Guardians of the Galaxy and the Ant-Man movies. It kind of surprised me how every movie has this issue. I also think that Loki should have had a more active part. He's just there to taunt the Avengers and guard the blue light. I think that he could have definitely fought them. Like, why didn't the Avengers go up against maybe a higher level Chitauri? Why didn't you have like Iron Man and Captain America doing team ups like they did at that one part where they used beams together? And why didn't you have them like destroy the Chitauri guard together? You could have like a sword and maybe a mallet. Or why didn't you have Loki and Hulk take out that beast physically instead of just going on top of it and fighting some guys? Like, why didn't Loki come down to fight them? Imagine Mysterio from Far From Home, but with Loki. Have Loki kind of go there and have Loki really mess with the Avengers. He's the god of mischief for all. He could have done some real thing. He could have definitely destroyed the Hulk, in my opinion. Maybe not. I also think that Iron Man's new armor is really, really stupid. Like, why didn't you give him? I like have his armor get destroyed by like Loki, or you could have given him the armor on the helicarrier. And while it was a cool scene, it was kind of a waste to see Tony go against someone who's also super full of themselves. It could have been a really cool fight psychologically rather than physically, but they just decided to throw it away. However, the fight afterwards with the Avengers coming together really does propel this movie for me because I honestly, this movie is not all bad. I think it has some good points, and I think it's, although it's not perfect, it's definitely a mid movie. Like, pause. I'll give it a few pauses right now. I like the CGI; it's very, very good. The final fight scene with the like when they all work together for a second, that part is great. Coulson's scene is one of my favorite scenes in the MCU, 100%. I like how it ties up the leads with the Avengers in the previous movies. I also, and this is another big criticism, this is another big thing a lot of people talk about. I like how they kind of tie it to the Incredible Hulk, but kind of don't. And although the actors aren't perfect, there are some really good actors in here, and I think this is the perfect stepping stone for them in the future. And that's what I think I will say about this movie. It definitely is a good stepping stone. It's a good way of transitioning Phase 1 into Phase 2. Like, Phase 2 didn't do this well, Phase 3 didn't do this well. This phase transitions perfectly. Phase 2, they had Ant-Man last. Even Avengers wouldn't have transferred this well. And Endgame was a good finale, so you can't really blame that. But, like, to kind of hit everything home, I don't understand why Joss Whedon is praised. Like, so, this movie compared to Avengers Infinity War, I mean, yeah, actually, and compared to Age of Ultron, I don't know why Age of Ultron gets so much hate. Age of Ultron takes a good journey with the Hulk, it takes a good journey with Iron Man, it takes a good journey with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. The only character that it really fumbles the bag on, Black Widow not counted, would be Captain America. But that's like a whole separate issue. This movie should not be as praised as it is, in my opinion. It is not even that good. It is not one of the best superhero movies of all time. In fact, I would give it a pass, but not a good, if you know what I mean. But, like, another thing that I forgot to mention in the script is that, like, this movie is boring. Oh my, this movie is so boring. I watched it, like, 2 days ago. I whipped this entire script together in about 4 days, which is shocking to me. It's my fastest time ever scripting around a script. But, like, I just don't know why this movie is so praised. This movie is so bad. It's so garbage, so boring. It's just, oh my god. It should be praised for things it does well, but it's not. It's not criticized at all. I've only seen one video on YouTube that actually criticized this movie. It's like I don't understand movie critics because apparently the Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the worst Spider-Man movie, and Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man movie. But this is one of the best movies in the MCU. Like, I disagree with so many opinions of movie reviewers. Like, Age of Ultron's the best non Endgame type movie. I think Avengers Age of Ultron is great. Tom's trilogy is my second favorite Spider-Man. I think Tobey Maguire is the worst Spider-Man. I think that, let's see what else. I also think that Ant-Man is just mid. Civil War is mid. Endgame is not as bad as people say it is, though it's not as good as Infinity War. There are just so many opinions here that I can't name that I just disagree with people with. But I think this movie, the reason, if I were to pin it down to a reason why this movie gets so praised and other movies in the MCU get so defiled, is because of nostalgia. This is tied back to Phase 4 too. The only reason people are hating as bad on Phase 4 as they do is because of crowd mentality. Everyone's saying Phase 4 is bad, so now Phase 4 is bad. Now, Phase 4 is not perfect. I think that Phase 3 was much better, but worse than Phase 1 and Phase 2? No, I'm sorry, no. Like, I love Shang-Chi, I love Doctor Strange, I love Spider-Man, I love Hawkeye, I love Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I love Loki. People say they love, like, half, if not 3/4 of the MCU, Phase 4, but I think the problem is that the people that projects love, they're great. But I think especially with this phase, the bad projects are horrendously bad. It's not like before where even the bad projects were like 4. The bad projects here are like 1 or 2. It's crazy. So luckily they'll be reevaluating everything with Phase 5 and Phase 6. Maybe even delaying / canceling certain movies. That's awesome. We don't need a Wonder Man movie. We don't need a Nova project. We don't even need a Humans project. You don't even need to try to set up the Young Avengers until Phase 7, in my opinion. Just take a step back and really build. So I'm going to try something new with this video and give it a rating. Its rating is C+, not perfect, not amazing, straight up in the middle. The only thing that pushes over the edge is just straight up, it's iconic. I have nothing more for me to say, it's iconic. But, like, I don't understand why people get so much praise, and I will fight people to the end of my days. This movie does not deserve any of the praise it gets. None. I'm sorry, none. But yeah. This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I will be at the end of this month streaming Batman Arkham Origins. December 23rd, 4th, and 5th until I beat it. I'll be putting up a community post today between Spider-Man Miles Morales, Arkham City, and Arkham Origins. Whatever one wins, I will, and I'll be the final decider. So, like, if something ties or if no one votes, I will be the final decider. Spoiler alert, I'll be voting Arkham Origins. I really love Arkham Origins, and I would love to replay it again. Maybe we can even do the game with no damage. If we do Spider-Man Miles Morales, I might try to do the entire game Ultimate Difficulty, no damage. I think that'd be really, really fun. I'm also going to be streaming most likely a ranking video of every movie this year at maybe New Year's Eve. But yeah, thank you for watching. Like the video. Check out my Zack Snyder Justice League video. That video did pretty well. It's pretty funny. I made a community post about it and it like doubled the views. I wonder if that's because you guys just check my community post rather than anything else. But yeah, I'm Justin from my studios. Enjoy my Black Adam video next week and stay electric.